Welcome to the Speak Her podcast with your host, Camille Essick, the podcast where creators and innovators connect. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, this is Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speak Her podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. If you have not done so, hit that notification bell and subscribe. Follow me across streaming platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. We're also on Audible. And guess what, guys? We are so much closer to hitting our first major milestone of 10,000 downloads. So that's why it's imperative that you go right now and follow us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. It's free. Go ahead and do that right now. We have live episodes coming up very soon to kick off 2024. So hit that notification bell and subscribe and follow us on YouTube as well as Facebook, Instagram, Camille.Essick. And y'all, I am on Threads and TikTok. We're everywhere. So we're everywhere you want to be. We're everywhere that you are and everywhere that you're going. And guess what, guys? I'm so excited about what's to come as we kick off this year. I really think you're going to be pleased with some of the faces I'm bringing to the table. I'm bringing some new faces, and of course, we're bringing back some familiar individuals that we consider friends and family to the show. So in order to stay in the loop, go right now and follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick or on Facebook at the Speak Her Podcast. Y'all, I don't know where you've been, if you've been under a rock, if you have not seen or heard this whole Katt Williams interview on Club Shay Shay, the Shannon Sharp podcast on YouTube. Now, listen, just hear me out. I just have some thoughts on this, and let me know what you think. So as a podcaster, I have really been sitting back and watching and listening to this conversation surrounding the Katt Williams interview. Now, family, I'm not here to debate whether if it's true or not, because you know what, honestly, that is not the hill I'm choosing to die on. However, space, I am blown away from the levels of content created streaming from this one conversation. Watching this interview and the content stemming from this interview has been a true masterclass. Now, Mr. Sharp released a response video discussing the behind the scenes or the BTX experience of conducting this interview, which includes what we did not see prior to him conducting the interview. In other words, he expressed he regretted not having the cameras rolling as Mr. Williams was coming in even before the interview. So can you imagine what was said in that content before this interview took place or was recorded? Shannon or Mr. Sharp also stated that he had another set of questions he didn't even have a chance to ask. If you're a podcaster, then you already understand what this is about, how that feels. And he also mentioned Uncle Shay Shay, how drained he was from the interview. There is a place you have to pour from a place when that microphone is in front of you. I don't think people really understand how much of a place of virtue that's poured out when you're interviewing and you're doing these shows. And like I said before, if you're a podcaster in the place of digital media or creating in digital spaces, then you totally understand what I mean by this. Currently, videos from previous interviews, stand-up shows, sitcoms, and other sources of video are sourcing from other actors, comedians, etc., all across social media. In other words, y'all, the receipts are out. The last time I checked, Mr. Sharp's viewership for this interview was over 14 million and counting. Y'all, 14 million and counting. Now, Mr. Sharp, he's been able to cultivate an environment for himself in a world of digital media and generate conversation having a lisp or speech impediment. Now, we've all been guilty to use what we have labeled as faults or weaknesses as an excuse not to show up, or we discredit ourselves as far as why we can't do something. And Shannon, Mr. Sharp, Uncle Shay Shay, he has endured disrespect when he was on a prior show on ESPN, and yet he found a way to pivot and open doors in his own way. As a result, his platform has shifted conversation in the digital world literally overnight. And you know what? I I was observing and taking notes, and I'm going to share with you all some things I learned from a creative standpoint. First thing, number one, continue to show up. Even if it seems like no one is subscribing, no one has download, you're not getting many views or followers, and you're feeling like, man, why am I doing this? You may be just one conversation, one piece of content away from everything just taking off. So that's point number one. Continue to show up. Well, actually, it goes into point number two. All it takes is one episode to shift where you are on another level. Number three, never underestimate the ability of your guests to impact an audience. Sometimes we can bring people on, and because we're familiar with them, or we feel like, oh, that's just so-and-so, we're just going to do this interview, or I'm going to do this content with this person, I'm going to do show up at an event for this person. And it may not be big. I don't know. I'm just going to show up and leave. But you don't know who that person knows. And you really don't know how much influence that person really has. So never underestimate your ability to impact your audience. Number four, if you did not get to all of your questions, and this is particularly for my podcasters, if you did not get to all of your questions, it's okay, because you never know what doors can open by only asking the one question or the right question. You don't know which question could be that question that takes everything by storm. One question for Shannon Sharpe resulted in 30 minutes of nonstop, unfiltered minutes of Katt Williams, just unfiltered. Number five, the amount of content we leave on the table. Y'all, I'm guilty of this myself. We'll post something and we're going, I did that. I did this photo. I'll do it. I'll go in and do something else. Y'all, and particularly for those that do photo shoots, this is something that I learned from Mark Coley years ago in the TCMBA, the Mark Coley Business Academy. Even prior to that, when I was with him in Power 5, he taught us early on, if you do a photo shoot, it's like a gun. Don't unload your clip. If you take a photo shoot and you get 25 pictures, I know you're excited. Hey, drop one or two and repurpose those one or two photos. And those one or two photos, if you use it properly, correctly, it can last you for a year. And now you've created an arsenal of photos and content that you can use over and over. So if you have social media content from a year ago, if you have photo shoot images from a year ago, and you figure, oh my gosh, I need another photo shoot. Honestly, you really don't. You probably overutilized everything in a short span of time. You did not properly schedule your content, and you did not know how to properly recycle your content. So go back and look again. You have more content than you realize right now. And last but not least, no matter how entertaining the conversation may be, discernment matters. That means being able to read your guests, being able to read the people that you're signing a contract with, being able to read your audience, the tone of your audience, your group. It matters. It makes a difference. One of the things I saw in the interview with Shannon Sharpe, there was some shell shock going on, and there was a couple of times that he didn't know how to pivot in the conversation because Katt Williams just went off the rails, not in a bad way, but he just gave him so much at one time. Mr. Sharpe, he kind of got flabbergasted. He didn't know how to pivot or turn in the conversation. And it happens. It's happened to me before. But at the same time, kind of in the back of your mind, if this is a person that's known for saying what we call the shock jock, and can say some jolting things or revelations in your mind, see if you can do some things before the interview or before the events, or wherever you're going to kind of prepare. So if a bombshell does drop, then you know how to pivot or recover. It may not always work, but if you can, try to do so. And then read the conversation and figure out how to pivot even when the space is difficult. And this is something I'm learning, have learned, and I continue to learn, particularly in the podcasting space. So I hope some of these things that I shared with you resonated. If they did, I would love to hear from you. Be sure to reach out to me via email at thespeakerpodcast@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram at Camille.Essick. On YouTube, hit that notification bell and subscribe. Also on TikTok, Threads, on Facebook at The Speaker Podcast. And we're streaming across iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. So with that being said, this is Camille Essick. Thank you for tuning in and listening to my take on the podcast interview with Uncle Shay Shay and Uncle Katt Williams. And you be blessed and have a blessed day, because this is the Speaker Podcast where innovators and creators connect. On the next one, good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Speaker Podcast. Be sure to follow Camille on Instagram at Camille.Essick, Facebook at The Speaker Podcast, or www.camilleessick.com.